I know everybody is focused on either the Epstein files or the, Russia stuff, and not trying to take away from that, but, the MLK files, I have been interested in. And I said, it seems like after JFK, well, radical leftists got into the CIA, the FBI, because it seemed like it changed a lot. I'm not saying it was ever perfect, but prior to that, they seemed to be very concerned about, not wanting communism to come in here, which as an American is important to me. You can make all the excuses you want that, oh, well, they were, wiretapping everybody. Yeah, I get it, but these were very designed groups, such as I almost think that MLK he should have never supported the Kenya thing. He shouldn't. He just shouldn't have. But I think likely somebody not American took him out. There's no proof to that. I don't think we will ever know the truth of who killed JFK or any of these people. I don't. Because as I had said in my video yesterday, straight from the documents, there's been so many interest groups involved in this. Because again, the Kennedy family had ties to sympathizing with Nazis, okay? Just too many interest groups. And then after JFK, when JFK got in, actually, even before he was killed, there was just all of these groups popping up, students for communism, students for democratic society, all this bullshit, okay, which is what it was. Then you take out MLK, okay, and then you really make America look racist, because that's what they always want to do, okay, even though the Democrat Party itself is racist. So why MLK was ever tied to it, I don't know. But maybe he didn't know it, but that's just history you can look into. But see, the Democrat Party went a little further. Because, of course, after the MLK assassination, it caused race riots everywhere, okay? Which is always what, the Democrats seem to want to create. And they'll go to any means to create it. So this is a tent city that was created in Washington, at the monument, okay? If this was called the Poor People of Hope or something in Resurrection City. Yeah, so they all these groups brought poor people here. One of the biggest was the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, okay? What I don't get about you people doing this, all you universities, is it's like if you want to help the poor people, you raise all this money to go protest in front of Washington. Why don't you raise the money and give it to the poor people? Doesn't that seem like it makes more sense? That's why I don't trust any of these bullshit groups. I just don't. So one of the biggest was and MLK was tied to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. But they campaign leaders managed the organization, including negotiating permits to camp on the National Mall with the city. The United Auto Workers Union donated $55,000 to support building Resurrection City. So this all to protest that Washington needs to do something to help the poor. You raised $55,000 to just build this bullshit for 26 days. Does it make it make sense? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Except that you raise the money, and instead of giving it to the poor or doing something like building, I mean, if you were able to build all this, why didn't you just build some homes for them? A volunteer committee of architects led by the University of Maryland professor John Webenson designed tents that could be quickly and efficiently built by unskilled volunteers. Materials for the shelters arrived centrally, and volunteers and protesters constructed the 8 by 20 foot wooden tents, along with communal structures for sanitation, food, medical care, and child care. So, yeah, it was called the Village of Hope for 26 days. Resurrection City resurrected all this to demand that they do something. This was in the wake of MLK's assassination. I believe it was. I'm pretty sure it was. But they've done this forever, and it's like it doesn't make any sense. You raise all this money And then you want to say we need to help poor people, we need to help people without insurance. Okay, well, instead of going and using all that money, which I think most of you just pocket it, you use the poor people, you use black people, you use white people, you use anybody you can for these communist groups. That's what they are. And the reason I'm saying this is because of this from the MLK files. And the Democrats, just, they did everything they've done. I really think the Democrat Party is a danger to America. I do. I really do. You'll understand in a minute. So what this says is the House Committee on Un-American Activities has been renamed the House Internal Security Committee. So the House Committee on Un-American Activities was created like in the 40s, and it was literally to stop, to investigate anything with, people trying to bring in communism here. Of course, the Democrats weren't really happy with that, so they changed the name from the Un-American Activities to the Internal Security Committee. Of course, they would. But then it goes on here. One group fought to abolish the committee entirely, and the other sought to transfer its work to a judiciary subcommittee. Final approval of the change in name came on a vote of 305 to 79 after opponents had failed to block considerations by an earlier vote. The smallest of all congressional committees, it was first created in 1934, so 1934, as a special committee to investigate the rise of Hitlerism in Germany. It became a permanent House committee in 1945 and shifted its attention to ferreting out communists or suspected communists. In its new chairman, Richard H. Icord, a Democrat out of vowed last fall to improve the committee's image. Last month, in a first step, 4 moderate to liberal Democrats were named to the 9-member committee. Mr. Accord assured the House this week that the committee had adopted new rules that would more fully protect rights of witnesses. Yeah, well, no, things just got worse, but that's because Democrats did this. So before this committee, it's just like with the CIA. It's my whole point is that, the CIA was very much about preventing communism from coming in. But then when JFK, that's when everything went to hell in a handbasket. And the left, when you look into it, the left believed that communists should have the right to protest. Okay, but our country is completely the opposite of communists. So, a communist is just straight up scary. But that's how all these groups got in, is because of the Democrats getting so much power. And it was not just Democrats, although, it was these far left radicals, to where, it's not even right to say un-American. Well, communism is un-American. I don't give a shit what the communist Americans in this country think. Move to a communist country instead of trying to overthrow this one. Okay? There's many you can choose from, but no, they're never happy because they're people that never will be happy. And so it seems in many ways, in my opinion, okay, that the communists had already infiltrated everything after JFK. And JFK being that his, especially the father, and his actions, like even I can read the Bay of Pigs and say, why did JFK F that up so much? It was a total F up because it was all set up because of Eisenhower. All Kennedy had to do was provide air support. There would have never been the Cuban Missile Crisis if he would have done that. Like every step of the way, he effed up, and then he turned around and blamed the CIA. Again, not trying to give a pass to the CIA or FBI, but what were they prior to JFK, and because they seemed to be wanting to prevent communism. It was only after JFK that they seemed to hate the people that hated communism.